All right, so I want to start with kind of what's been going on with Archer recently and his relationship with his son that's been teased a little bit here and
Yeah.
there. I know we got like hints here and there, including last week when we saw him take the picture out of the wallet. I'm curious, like, what can you tease heading into these last few episodes of the season regarding that? Like, are we going to learn the real reason they haven't spoken in 15 years?
I suspect that we will learn why. I suspect that the answer to that will also be a key to why, for instance, he's not that welcoming for Dr. Asher, played by Jesse Schramm, who has a particularly difficult past, and it's something that might resonate with Archer and his son. As the show goes, they don't really tell me that much in advance.
Yeah.
I found out I had a son when I read the script. I was like, oh, I have a son. I'll start making adjustments to support that. So I think they will start telling more of his background, and we will learn a lot, and we'll see anyway.
Yeah, that kind of leads me in the next question, what you were talking about. Like, ever since Dr. Asher's arrived at Med, it seems like she and Archer have kind of been at each other's throats. And so I was curious, like, in your opinion, why does he hate her so much? But it sounds like it has something to do with his son, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if he hates people as much as he hates himself. I mean, this is a
Okay.
guy that has some particular characteristics having to do with self-loathing. I think his history includes post-traumatic stress disorder. He saw action in the Navy in the war, and that messes you up, and it comes out as being prickly and often hateful and often kind of weird. I mean, his early behavior was pretty aberrant, but the show's strayed away or stayed away from that. I would say that's a little melodramatic and it's more realistic. He's perceived as being a jerk, but I think we're going to find out why. He's not. Nobody's just a jerk. There's usually some backstory. Scrooge started out as kind of a nice guy who was abandoned at school when he was young, and
Yeah.
why he became the awful guy he was.
uh, yeah, and you kind of hinted at just now. I know there's been hints to Archer's PTSD, although we don't know exactly what happened to him while he was overseas. Have the writers told you what happened to Archer in regards to that, or like as an actor, have you just kind of made something up in your head?
The latter. I've had to make things up, more or less. I mean, I know that when we first discussed the character, when I was first offered the role, there was clearly a connection to my life, which was personal. My father had been a Korean War veteran. He suffered from PTSD, and so there were several characteristics of Archer that were reminiscent of my dad. One is which he was quick to anger. One is which he could be prickly. Not all the time, but enough times for it to be noticeable. And but they never went into any detail as to what actions led up to that kind of behavior. But I can do the math. I mean, he probably saw some things that eventually wore away at him, wore him down, and that goes a long way to explain why there are many doctors in the field, in the professional medical field, who are probably closer to Dean Archer in terms of personality than the square-jawed, beautiful heroines and heroes of Chicago Med. I'm not saying that they aren't heroes or
Yeah.
they don't have altruist tendencies, but the day-to-day reality is something that doesn't make you walk around and swagger. It makes you drink. It makes you scream. It makes you want to punch a wall.
Hmm.
And the medical people the professionals that who've watched the show and have commented, tell me that my character is in many ways, not all the ways, but in many ways is closer to the reality of what it's like to work in a kind of a big city medical, in a big city hospital.
Yeah. You just mentioned that when they offered you the role of Archer, that you kind of saw something that, or familial at least, like that was that you were able to relate to, and that's why this character was intriguing to you. But I'm curious, like you, Steven, as a person, like in what ways do you think you're similar to Archer?
Wow, I mean, we're both amazingly nimble when it comes to removing inner organs. I don't know. I mean, look, I don't know how much I have in common with this particular guy. I don't think I'm nearly as prickly. I don't have his issues. But look, I mean, the actor's description is to, assume certain behaviors that are alien to you. I mean, I mean, clearly he looks like me. I look like him, and then we're the same age, and we have this scruffy kind of facial hair, and I have to make up reasons to justify all of that. So, in a way, I'm almost reverse engineering my this character and how it relates to me, because I never had any medical training. I don't have the intellectual capacity to do that. I mean, it's hard enough for me to pronounce certain medical terms as an actor. I can't imagine if I was a real doctor, by the time I get them out, they'd be dead.
Yeah. Did you get any kind of medical training when you joined the show, or not really?
I'd like to say yeah, but no. We have really attentive and incredibly, I want to say, specific medical technicians on the set to make sure that everything we do is exactly right. There are very few moments when we do things for dramatic purposes, but really 99.9% of the time it's right on the money. I know several of the actors when they started this gig years ago, did ride-alongs in ambulances and observed autopsies and everything. I've been around a long time. I don't need to do that. I can pretend that I'm an intense, gifted, cranky doctor, really without having to research it.
Um, Something else that's had certainly its ups and downs is the dynamic between Archer and Ethan, especially since he joined the show last year. But like we saw in this week's episode, it seems to be in a pretty good place right now. Like, what can you tease about that dynamic in these last few episodes of the season? And like, what's it like working with Brian?
Um, well, I'll answer the second part first. Brian T is a great guy. He is a giving, funny, present guy that is not given to crazy, dramatic diva fits. He's a pragmatic, wonderful, funny, wonderful actor. So that's what that's like. As for the relationship between Archer and Ethan, they have a fairly recent traumatic background. I mean, Archer's behavior led to Ethan getting shot, nearly killed, possibly paralyzed. Without giving too much away, Ethan is undergoing a kind of a change. Life changes you, and in many ways, he's going to start facing certain elements of his own life that maybe he was avoiding through his amazing work as a doctor, through his time served in the military. And that's what the show is starting to talk about, again, without giving too much away. He's starting to think deeply about what his life has been, what the meaning that he's been pursuing. So it's really interesting.
You kind of alluded to it earlier, but I know Dr. Archer tends to be not the most popular character in the One Chicago fandom. And I'm curious, like, do you pay any attention at all to like what people say about him online, or not at all, really?
I mean, once in a while I'll come across some comments where somebody will say like, "Oh, I love this guy," and somebody will say like, "Oh God, if he hooks up with Dr. Hannah, I gotta throw up," And I'm like, it's a brutal world for any performer. The easiest thing to do is to criticize something, and I could be even further aggressive and say that the critics basically tear down things that they themselves couldn't do. Okay, so you sort of know where I'm coming from. But I make it a point to really not read any press, or at this point, it's useless for me. It would get in the way of anything I'm trying to do. And yeah. I mean, imagine if you were under that kind of scrutiny, or a plumber was, or real doctors were reviewed, or accountants were reviewed, or waiters were reviewed. And yes, through the places like Yelp and everything, you can get reviewed, and sometimes it's brutal. But we're actors are easy pickings, man. We live such kind of sweet lives, sitting on the set, eating all day, and having people pamper us and do our makeup, that why not destroy us? But really, it's it's a waste of time, and it's destructive. So I think I might be the kind of character that people love to hate, and I think the reality is having my character around in this world, in this particular show, is really good because everybody is so goddamn good looking and heroic and kind of cool. And it's good to have some old bastard kind of be wrinkly and upset all the time, like real life.
Yeah. I kind of going
Like,
off that
yeah.
though. I'm kind of going off that though. I am curious though, like in your opinion, are we supposed to be rooting for Archer or against him?
Look, the thing that's brilliant about the way they write this guy is that he comes off as immediately as not having the best bedside manner, and yet here's a guy who has, on several occasions, proven that he has as much, if not more, of a heart than some of our other beloved characters. I mean, my character has been able to connect with patients. One time, I mean, I remember there's a scene between Archer and a young girl who's, I think she has a brain tumor or something, and he connects with her in a totally beautiful way. I'm not saying the way I did was beautiful, but the way it was written, and it was very well done and well shot, and there are moments like that. So here's the thing: even though it's television and even though it's entertainment, and a lot of people probably leave Chicago Med on in the background while they're doing their stuff because it is comfort food in a way. Um, the reality is that people are flawed and people are capable of small h heroism, and maybe we can root for him. Maybe there is something to be liked and to be encouraged. But look, I mean, on the face of it, he's just, like I said, he's just a rankled dickhead. So, but it serves a purpose.
Yeah. I know Archer has made comments a couple times about some sort of feelings that he all of a sudden had for Dr. Blake, and even at one point asked her to dinner, although she turned him down. I'm curious, are his feelings for her genuine, or was that more of a power move, you think?
Oh God, I don't think it's a power move. I mean, I think he's full of bluster. He comes across, he can be a kind of a tough guy, and he can yell at people. I've actually enjoyed yelling at some of the nurses and doctors. Come on, let's go. And that's not necessarily scripted. It doesn't say
Right.
he yells at her. It's like, come on, let's go. And people love that. I like to do it. But the reality is, he's probably incredibly lonely. He probably has a bleak life. He's not with anybody. As you said earlier, he hasn't spoken to his son. Who knows what that's about? Who knows if he has an ex-wife or if he's a widower, or who the hell knows? We don't know.
Yeah.
But what I do know about these kinds of men, speaking as a man, is that it can be dark and it can be lonesome. And I think when he saw Sarah Rafferty, I said, when he saw Sarah Rafferty, he saw somebody who was, an appropriate age and an ability that he could understand or relate to. Somebody who, like he, has probably been hurt and is a little flinty. I think maybe he understands that. So I don't think it was a power play. I think, and in fact, when he was rejected, I think we saw a moment of him being almost like a kid, a teenager, like, oh, okay. He was genuine. He's a guy that doesn't really wear that type of stuff on his sleeve. Certainly not like Crockett, who's like, hey man, I can date anyone, that type of thing.
Would you hope to see at some point Archer have a love interest and like that side of his personal life explored at some point?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's valid. Whether the audience wants to see that is another thing. But yeah, I mean, he's capable of affection and love and romance. And again, this is a particular kind of a character. This is you can take it to a certain level where he's anti-heroic. He's a gifted doctor, but again, he's a jerk. He's not necessarily nice. So what would that look like? Who would he find? And who would find that tolerable, let alone attractive? And it would be interesting to explore. But Chicago Med has got a lot of characters. It's a big world, and every week they try to address as much as possible. I think if they took a little time out to see, Dr. Archer getting jiggy with anybody. That you know, I don't know. They may end up on the cutting room floor.
I'm curious. There hasn't been like a real crossover since you joined the show, but I'm curious, like when it can finally happen, like who on Fire and PD would you like to see Archer interact with?
Oh God, I don't know. I mean, any one of the actors on those shows would be great. I mean, I really, since I'm so prickly, my character's so prickly, it'd be great to go up against one of, like Jason Begay and see what he's about and kind of
Yeah.
duke it out, and then maybe look at each other and say, "Hey, I like the cut of your jib." Hey, you're a dickhead. So are you. Hey, let's have a drink. That type of thing. And or Eamon's character on Fire, is a great guy, but I don't care. Look, it's such a privilege to be on this show that if they want to cross me over with the Flintstones, I'll be like, yeah, let's do it. There to go.
Yeah. And then my last question for you is just, I know you've had quite the career and played many types of roles and many different mediums. Like, is there a role or at least a type of character that you've never played but would love to cross off your bucket list?
Boy, I have been fortunate enough to play a lot of roles and a wide variety of them. I'd be hard pressed to think of one that I haven't played that I'd love to try to play. I mean, I'm still trying to get the hang of playing mostly regular people. I'd like to be in kind of like the Marvel universe or even the DC universe, but that, as somebody's accountant, I don't know. But no, I'm actually really enjoying playing Dr. Archer for all the reasons that I spoke of earlier. I have kind of a personal connection to him, and the more opportunities they give me to, I bet you're wondering what the hell that sounds like. This is I'll show this to you. This is called a Vestaboard, and a Vestaboard it's like do you see what it is?
Oh, it
It
like
has a
changes
tile.
what's written there.
That's right. It's almost like the type of board you see at a railway station or an airport that gives you the departing and arrival times.
Yeah.
There's a thing called the Vestaboard, and it gives you quotes, and anyway, but it's a pain in the ass, especially if you're not used to it like I am. Jump! What the hell is that? It's like a bunch of woodpeckers. So, like I say, I mean, so playing archers has provided a lot of challenges and a good opportunity to kind of delve deeper into this type of personality, which I have a connection to.
That's awesome. Well, Stephen, those are quite all the questions I had for you. Thank you
All
so
right.
much for taking time to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and I hope Gina feels well.
Yes, I will pass it on to her. Thank you.